there, I'm Beverly Sartain, and this is the Holistic Coach Legacy Podcast, where you get support in being an impactful and confident coach. In today's episode, we are going to be featuring Arlina Allen. She is one of my She Recovers sisters, and I'm so grateful to have her on the podcast this week. She is a wonderful woman who, is very collaborative and is doing great work into the world. She's got her own podcast as well. And so I'm super excited to have her on talking about self-sabotage and how we can use coaching to support people in resolving their self-sabotage. So lots of great tips and tools coming your way. I hope that you thoroughly enjoy this. Many blessings to you. Welcome, everyone. So good to be here with you today. We have the wonderful Arlina with us. Thanks for being here, dear.
So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so happy that we're doing this. I have to share with everyone that Arlina and I know one another through the She Recovers community. The She Recovers community has a group of coaches, and they're always very supportive, very loving. I love that community so much, and I'm very grateful that I was able to meet Arlina through that community. And so here we are.
Yay, super fun.
Yep. So we are going to be talking a bit today about self-sabotage, as I know that that's something that you support people around. And so kick us off with a bit of a backstory about what brought you to coaching.
So I've been in recovery since April 23rd of 94. So it's been a minute. I really found a passion and a calling to, once I found my way out of that pit of despair, it's like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to hear the solutions, right? There are so many solutions to suffering. And so I really started on this quest of helping others, women primarily, but I would attend lots of 12-step meetings and I would speak at meetings all the time, and really just found this passion and calling for what, trying to deconstruct, why the pain, like where is it coming from? How is it playing out in our lives? What is it holding us back from? What is it causing? So just really sort of deconstructing and unpacking all that pain and all the different facets has just been fascinating for me. And so I finally left corporate America last December. I had the year of my career. My company did so well, it got bought out, and they immediately laid off the entire inside sales team, which I was a part of. But I was dying to get out of that field. And it was so funny because I do practice a lot of law of attraction stuff, and my computer laptop password was new job 2020. And I got laid off in December, and I had already been in the process of being certified as a wellness and recovery coach. So I took the severance and the the big fat commission check at the end of the year, and I launched my coaching business. I've been doing it full time for the last 6 months, and girl, I am living my purpose. So, and I really think about, sobriety through self-esteem rebuilding, right? So it's what I focus on. I teach a class called Reinvent, and it's how to rebuild your self-esteem after heartbreak, trauma, and addiction. Because, our self-esteem is really eroded during this period of like mental illness or heartache, or people carrying around a lot of trauma. So a lot of people don't even feel worthy to receive the solution until they can sort of rebuild that self-esteem. So in my mind, reprogramming the subconscious mind, the subconscious beliefs all around identity is just fascinating to me. I love doing this work and seeing transformations. It makes me so happy.
Awesome. We have so much in common.
I know.
I know. This is why we meet and we talk, because I didn't know that about your story, and I got laid off and is how I stepped into my coaching business.
Really?
Yes. And I happened to be, I knew I was going to do a coaching business. So I had already gone through my training. I had already started to set the business up. And then we unexpectedly got bought out, and I made it through the first round of layoffs, and then they discontinued the service department, which is what I was part of. And so I totally relate to what you're saying. And luckily I had been working on my business so that I then stepped into it full time. So totally I'm feeling you on that. And then just the self-esteem piece, because my first year in my recovery, when I was doing spiritual psychology, we had to pick a quality of experience that we wanted to work on for the year. And I actually picked self-worth because worthiness was such a challenge for me. And I knew at that point that I really needed to dig into figuring out how to connect with my innate worth versus trying to get my worth from being great at work, or trying to get my worth from relationships, or trying to get my, worth from something outside of myself. So I love the work that you're doing with people, because I think it's so essential. And so how do you think that like the self-esteem piece ties in with the self-sabotage piece?
Well, I'll start by addressing something you sort of triggered a thought for me, which is, and it really ties in. So I really believe that we only allow into our lives what we believe we deserve on a subconscious level, right? And so, you talked about seeking outside of ourselves to fix an internal problem. And we are trained to do that from like day one, because as children, we are not in control of our environment. We have to sometimes set aside our wants and needs to appease the adults who are in control of meeting our needs and our wants. And so we learn from a very early age to seek outside ourselves, right? We learn to, those of us who've had trauma in the past, we learn to disassociate, disconnect, deny, suppress all of our feelings so that we can, make other people happy so that we can be happy. And so that cycle of needing to make others happy so that we can be happy, that becomes this barrier to really feeling that self-worth. But it also is the barrier to like, it's a C word, and it's not the bad C word. Contentment. Sorry. My brain's like, too many drugs in the past. Contentment, like really peace. And that, achievement leads to contentment and peace and satisfaction. And so we get into this loop of putting a barrier in between us and peace, let's just say. And in this idea that I need to do something so that I can feel that sense of contentment that comes from achievement, right? I'm such an achievement junkie. Home Depot's thing of more doing. Girl, sign me up. My husband and I giggle at more doing. I love that shit. Oh my God. But it's this loop. And so I just want off the hamster wheel, right? Like I want to allow myself spending time, just go ahead and feel the feelings. Like we can visualize things as if they've already happened. I really do believe in like the laws of attraction. I believe in quantum physics and science and the laws of the universe. And I also at times neglect the spirit of love and grace. I feel like I stray into the area of, I grew up super churched with the idea that God's not going to do for you what you can do for yourself, right? And then I take that to the extreme, meaning to think I have to do everything. Right. And that's not the case. When I'm able to surrender, there's magic in that energy of surrender, because it releases the energy of neediness, and it allows neediness is the energy that pushes what you want away. Right. And the universe always says yes. So if you say, I want a new car, the universe says yes, you will have the experience of wanting a new car or love or a thin body or whatever. sorry, I'm on a tangent. Your original question was like, how does it relate to self-worth, right? So in my mind, if we can do the challenging, it's kind of tricky. There's some practical applications to identifying those limiting beliefs and reframing them. And I focus mostly on here is the money shot right here. You want to know what your limiting beliefs are? Think about what you want and then do a writing exercise. Why don't you have it? Because the story that you tell yourself, those are the clues to your limiting beliefs. And so sometimes it's like, well, I don't know why I don't have what I want. It's like, well, why don't you know? If you did know, what would you say? Why don't you have? And so that is the starting point to reframing some of those limiting beliefs. And I really believe that we attract on that subconscious level what we feel we deserve, what we're capable of, what we're worthy of. And so when we start changing those beliefs, it's magic. It feels like magic how everything else starts to change as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. In spiritual psychology, we call them unresolved issues. And we look for the unresolved issues within the consciousness, which is what you're talking about. And so, yeah, I love that you're doing that deeper work with people, like within their consciousness, because oftentimes we just try to shift things around externally when we're not addressing really what's going on in the consciousness. And I find that when in coaching, you can support people on taking outer action, but also help them shift internally, that's when people get the best results for themselves.
Yeah, really the outside is just a reflection of the inside. Like you do have to take right action, but you won't be able to do it consistently if the underlying beliefs if you have mindset issues or the unresolved issues.
Totally. So you tend to help, it seems, ambitious professionals because that's who you were, right? And so I can see how like you would be such a great fit for people that are in corporate America or, are just people that are professionals and maybe they are really committed to doing. And I'm curious, like, what are some of the most common self-sabotaging behaviors that people bring to you?
Well, so it really begins with the idea that if I just solve the money problem, the fitness problem, or the romance problem, then I'll be happy. Those are all external things, right? And so when I ask people to do the work of really repairing that self-esteem, what is required is nobody wants to hear this. It's prayer, meditation, journaling sometimes in a structured way. I like to leverage this writing exercise of the perfect day exercise. People can do like, what would your perfect day look like? Spend some time thinking about that, right? So the National Science Foundation said that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. And I think they said something like 80% of those thoughts are negative and like 95 are a repeat from the day before. So what this tells me is that we are literally living Groundhog Day. You and I are living, right? We are living in the residual of all of yesterday's thoughts and decisions, right? So it's like you think a thought, you have a feeling, you make a decision based on the information you have, and you invoke the law of cause and effect. You take an action, right? Then you've experienced the effect. And so we're like living in the residual of all of the yesterday's thoughts and feelings. And so my thing is, how about we start thinking some new thoughts and feelings? How about we invite some new information? How about we start questioning our thoughts? Just because you have a thought doesn't mean that it's true. Our brain is designed to think. That's its job. Its job is to think. So that consciousness that you talked about is about really, and the meditation and the prayer and the journaling and I just mean prayer and meditation in the most general sense possible. But it's about focusing on what you do want, right? What is it that you do want? A lot of times we are so disconnected from ourselves, we don't even know what we want. That's a very common thing I hear when people, take my class in the very beginning. It's like, what do you want? It's like, I don't even know. We're so disconnected and disassociated that we don't even know where to start, or we're afraid to want what we really want. We think it's too That saying, oh, don't get too big for your britches. There's this idea of, stay in this small little comfort zone. And that really speaks to, in neuroscience terms, it's called the default mode network. It's that comfort zone. It's a thermostat. You don't get too high or you don't get too low. You sort of live in this comfort zone. And when we try to break out, this is why people self-sabotage. Sorry to
it's great.
I'm like going all the way around the block to get to a point. But the reason it's so difficult to break out of the default mode network is your subconscious mind is trying to protect you because it feels safe in this little comfort zone. And so that's when all of when we're starting to do something new, that's when all our self-doubts and fears kick in. Right. And I have a very practical, I'm a girl, I am so practical. It's like, let's do the fear setting exercise. Tim Ferriss has an amazing TED talk, and he talks about how to define your fears instead of your goals. And I was like, oh, I see a worksheet. Yes, I created this worksheet.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you write down whatever your fear is, you write down all the worst case scenarios, like what could actually happen. And if that thing actually did happen, what would you do instead? What's your contingency plan? Right. And then now you know what you would do should the worst thing happen. So then the next part is, what is the cost of you not doing it? Like what's it going to cost you what is inaction going to cost you in 3 years? What's it going to cost you in 5 years? Right. What are you losing? What do you stand to gain if you do take action? What could you gain in 3 years? What could you gain in 5 years? Right. And so that fear, which is, I love that an acronym, false evidence appearing real, right? Then you see, it gets all the fears out of your head and onto paper, which is like a magical exercise in itself. But then you have a contingency plan. If the worst thing does happen, you know already what you're going to do instead. So no surprises. You can focus on moving forward. But I think the sabotage comes up when you start to try to break out of that default mode network and your subconscious mind is afraid, right? That's why we need coaches and support systems. It's all that fear that comes up. And your subconscious mind, it knows where all the bodies are buried. It knows like your Achilles heel. It knows the thing that you're most afraid of. And so it presents to you all the worst things that you could possibly be afraid of for your consideration. And then we get lost there. And then what do? We go back to our old coping skills, eating too much, picking the bad guy, ignoring the nice guy, spending too much money, impulsive shop. We go into avoidance, right? We go into obsession and avoidance.
Well, you've done such a great job of even sharing some tools with us, which I greatly, greatly appreciate. And you did mention that's why we need coaches. And so I'm curious about that. What do you think that coaching can do for people in terms of supporting them around self-sabotage?
Well, here's the thing. Everybody already knows what they're supposed to be doing, right? I know what I'm supposed to do. I remember hearing Marianne Williamson years ago. She wrote this book called A Return to Love and A Woman's Worth, and she lectures on A Course in Miracles. And I remember her saying, if we just practiced 10% of what we knew, our lives would be magical, right? If we only practiced what we knew. So the reason a coach is important, it's because we help people apply the information. Right? Like I just gave you some tools, the perfect day exercise, the fear setting exercise. I said something else. I can't remember. I'm menopausal, so I can't remember what happened 5 minutes ago. But listen, you have all the answers of the universe at your fingertips on Google. So the question becomes, why are we not applying it? Right? And so maybe that's not the right question, but a coach offers accountability. Like I do the Reinvent Self-Esteem class that I do, it's in a workshop format. We do the work together in class because it sort of leverages the idea that we will do for others what we won't do for ourselves. If I know I'm in this class and I got to show up for you and to do the work, it's like we support each other by doing it together, right? And I'll show up for you. Like I'm going through some challenges, everyone's got challenges, right? So I'm going through some challenges and I'm like, I got to double down on my self-care. So what did I do? I started hosting a live meditation, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. for like 20 minutes. And because I told other people I would do it, I'm holding the space. I feel responsible, right? And there's some accountability there. And people show up. And because I'm holding safe space for them, I also submit to the process and I'm healed.
Yes.
in the process. Right. So I
Yes.
have learned how to set up my environment to support me, but we do it together. There's magic, in religious terms, they say that when two or more are gathered in his name, that's when, God is present. But when you and I are together, right, and we share and we get vulnerable and we talk, there's something magical that happens. Something increases exponentially. And as women, we're accustomed to doing things together. Girl, we don't even go to the bathroom alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, you go to a restaurant and one girl gets up and all three of them go or something. The guys are like, where are y'all going? We do everything together, right? So there's something magical about the sisterhood that happens when we do these workshops together. We help each other, but we're also healed in the process. So applying the information, that is the trick. And that's why we need each other.
I am like, application is my thing, Arlina. So it is.
That's what we do.
I really love application. I love practice. I love all those things. And I love what you're saying about coaching, because that's one of my most favorite things about coaching. And I share it with everyone who will listen is I love that coaching allows for me to actualize as the coach while I'm supporting and holding space for somebody else to actualize if that's what they choose to do. And I haven't found a modality that creates that type of synergy and actualization as I see with coaching and, just the coaching space and what's created there. And I love that coaching focuses on, like you said, what you want to create, what you want to be experiencing more of. It turns your energy to creation versus turning your energy to fixing a problem. And you talked about law of attraction, right? If you're always focused on, I need to be better, I need to fix this, this isn't working for me, I'm struggling, that's the energy that you're in all the time. And coaching really helps you turn your energy to where you want to be going and what you want to be experiencing. Even if you're not fully experiencing it yet, we're working on moving towards that. Yeah. And by doing that, in a sense, you help dissolve some of the self-sabotage and what's going on in the consciousness, because you're retraining yourself to focus on what you want to create, not what you don't want more of.
There is a caveat to that, though, because there's this lie in our culture that says time heals all wounds. It doesn't. The pain waits. I've been sober for 27 years and doing 12-step work and all kinds of work. And I'm hearing people talk about resentments that they've had for decades, unresolved pain and trauma for decades. And in my mind, it's so important to acknowledge the pain, process it, and help it resolve so that you can be forward facing. That's a part. There's a couple of things about pain that is important, it is so important to be forward facing. There's like a balancing act, and I'm not talking a razor edge. Yeah, not a razor's edge kind of balance, but, acknowledge and process the pain from the past so that we can. I used to work in HR in a tech company, and they did this training, and they talked about demonstrating awareness. People would call in with their complaints to HR, and people could not get off the problem until you acknowledge and validate their pain.
Yes, totally.
So as soon as that happens, but that's in a healthy way. That's acknowledging, processing, and resolving. And then the other thing that I find really important, and it's one of the class I teach is a series of 6 classes. I think I'm going to have to add a 7th or 8th because there's so much, but, there is something called the forgiveness process. And the forgiveness is an interesting idea because you talked about fixing a problem. And I often hear people using language like they felt like they were broken, right? Broken or guilty or shameful. And so there is a way to address and resolve that guilt and shame so that we can receive. Guilt and shame are blocks to receiving. Right. And so in my mind, it's the pain, the guilt, the shame. Once we address and resolve those blocks, then all the other exercises around, visualizing, feeling the feelings as if it's already happened, being forward facing and
Mm-hmm.
balancing out the pain with being happy, joyful and creative. It is sort of like this harmonious dance that we do that moves us forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we're always supporting people around what's present for you and how can we acknowledge it and learn from it and be with it,
Right.
so that we can then move through it. And so I love that
move on down the road. Yes.
Right. And that's part of my story, is that I was in victim consciousness for a very long time and not really wanting to resolve it and just kind of sitting in it.
Of course not.
Right. And it's so painful. But there was a lot for me to learn from it. And now it's, being able to leverage those life challenges and use them for something good. So yeah, beautiful. So you've got your own podcast as well.
Yeah.
The One Day at a Time, the ODAT podcast. Uh-huh. So how does the podcast support the coaching business?
So I've been doing the podcast, so it's been about 5 years now. And the way it supports my coaching business is that it allows me to communicate, stories of transformation. In church, they called it testimonies, right? And in the corporate world, they call them case studies, or we just need to hear the epiphany bridge stories. It's like people are in a problem and then they have this epiphany and they're sort of able to walk the bridge into the world of the solution. Right. And so the podcast that I have, is stories. People tell their recovery story, like what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. But then we spend a good amount of time talking about solutions. Like, what are some of the tools and tactics? I'm very tactical and strategic. I love, when I first showed up to recovery, they were like, "Oh, you need to do the work." And I was like, "Cool, what is it?" I was like, "Oh, this is stuff." Well, I read that. It doesn't mean a damn thing to me. And what it was largely a writing process for me. It was about writing. Writing is so amazing because it helps you to get all your thoughts down on paper and really examine your thoughts. I have a friend who used to say that you have a BS filter in your elbow, and when you're writing, the truth comes out. And that was kind of true for me. It's our thoughts are so fast that it's sometimes hard to even recognize what we're thinking. Sometimes we tell ourselves stories so fast, and we don't even take a minute to examine whether the story is true or not. So I put out a lot of content that I hope will help people. And ultimately, occasionally I will be like, and oh, by the way, I do coaching, or I have a class. And if you want to learn more, my whole tagline is get sober, stay sober, go deeper. Right.
Nice.
Yeah. So I like the go deeper part. It's the get
Me
sober. Get sober and stay sober is really important, but it's the go deeper that is fascinating to me.
That's wonderful. It's great to hear.
Yeah.
And so you've been mentioning the Reinvent. And you have an ebook around that. So can you share a little bit more about all of that?
Listen, you can get the ebook for free. It has all the exercises that we do in class. So if you're like, so the class, you can register for it at selfesteemcourse.com. But if you don't want to do the class and if you're one of those people who are able to apply the information I will give you, I just want my life's goal, just be well. That's all. If my information helps you end suffering, then God bless you to do it. I'll give you the book for free. But so all the exercises are in there and everything. I forgot what your question was.
Well, yeah, that was it. And then, and so through the conversation, we've been talking a lot about the truth is that people oftentimes need the support and accountability of actually doing it in the class. So we'll put some information in the show notes about that so people can grab the ebook, but they can also access the class if they know that it would be best for them to get that extra level of support.
Yeah.
And then as far as legacy, when you think about everything that you're putting out there, Arlina, what's ultimately the legacy that you would like to leave with these beautiful offerings that you have for the world?
You're going to make me cry. Actually, I'm surprised it took this long. No, the legacy. Oh my gosh, isn't that what we all want? We just want to live our purpose, right? My purpose is to help women, men, people out of suffering. And, there's that. You ever hear that story about the starfish on the beach? Like, guy walks along the beach and there's tons of starfish, and there's a child throwing some in, and he's like, well, why bother? There's so many. And it's like, well, it matters to that one. If you can just save one, it matters to them. And the truth of the matter is that we're helping lots of people, right? And then as those people, like the women, you heal a woman, you heal a village, you heal a family, right?
Yes.
The moms are oftentimes the nurturers. And so, yeah, I just want to help. That's my thing. That's what makes me happy.
You are helping. And I'm really happy, like a synchronistic moment here that you brought that starfish story up, because when I left my first real job, I worked at a domestic violence shelter, and I freaking loved that job, but I needed to move on and spread my wings a bit. And the staff gave me that story framed.
Wow.
Yeah, so that story.
I never told that story.
Right, that starfish story, has a very significant meaning for me. Right. So thanks for bringing that forward. And the truth is that we're doing this work together, and I'm so grateful that you've came on my path, that I've come on your path, and that together we can share our messages and hopefully touch somebody's life. And I greatly thank you for being here. Any last thoughts before we come to completion?
No, not really. Just, that thank you so much for creating this safe space. And the magic really is in doing it together, being of service and giving love and receiving love. It's like when we experience that exchange, that's where love lives. And you don't have to do it by yourself. There are so many people available to help. And all you got to do is ask.
Right. Like I got to experience love today with you.
Oh,
It's true. And then hopefully somebody listening to this will experience some of that magic and love as well.
Yeah.
And may that be the ripple effect that we put out there, so that more people can be touched with love and grace and compassion. So thank you for being with me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. If there's only one thing that you take away from today's episode, may it be this connection between coaching and self-sabotage, and how coaching can be supportive in helping people resolve their self-sabotage. If you're looking for next steps, check out our website, holisticcoachtraininginstitute.com. And thanks again for listening and taking the time to be here with us. Always remembering that the Holistic Coach Legacy is a path, not a destination. So stay course, step into your dreams, and know that you are fully supported. Much love to you. Thanks for being here with us.